Virtually all forms of economics that promote government programs and controlling monetary policy focus on manipulating aggregates. In my last video, I gave a brief description of what aggregates are. In layman's terms, they are simply averages applied to people rather than quantifiable data. When you see a blackboard graph of supply and demand like this isn't hard data. There are simply guesstimates based on what little relevant data they have. There's no way to measure how much each and every person in a society values a particular item, nor is there a way to know how many manufacturers are willing to produce at what price. These aggregates are useful in trying to understand the general direction in which a market is heading. The problem is when economists and politicians start to believe they understand enough about the economy to make sweeping policy changes. This is because Blackboard economics has one linchpin assumption that renders all of their data useless the moment you start changing things. When you see an economist say, increase the cost of X and you will move the demand curve by a certain amount, what they don't tell you is that they are holding everything ceteris paribus. This literally means all things being equal. This is because there is no way to know all the alternatives and alternative inputs to a product or service, how elastic the price is, and how people and producers will respond to the change. This isn't that predictions won't be perfect. No, this is that there is absolutely no way to know if what you are doing will completely destabilize the market. A classic example of this is the sugar tariff. I won't get deep into it because if you have ever had an economics class, you probably have heard this. But basically, the US government wanted to support local sugar production. So they put a tariff on sugar imports to advantage local growers. But this ended up making sugar far more expensive, and no one wanted to pay the new price, so everyone switched to corn syrup, and local sugar production tanked because demand vanished. After a while, it didn't matter if they removed the tariff because corn syrup already had all the momentum. So you can think Keynesian supply-side economics for the corn syrup in everything you eat these days. The combination of aggregates and ceteris paribus means that Blackboard economics is functionally useless when trying to understand how laws and policy will affect an economy of any significant size. While it is possible to create models that have hundreds of thousands of cross-reference supply and demand graphs with alternatives and externalities, it still won't work because individual preference and choice just isn't predictable. Essentially, the butterfly effect of a single individual's choice can quickly render even the most careful economist's work useless. Don't misunderstand. Supply-side economics is still useful for understanding the current economic situation, just not the results of future action. For that, you need something that focuses on individual decision-making, like Austrian economics. Here is where my last two videos intersect. If 3D printing becomes as prolific as I believe it will become, we will have a true aggregation on the supply side. Imagine if all the hundreds of thousands of inputs in production were reduced to just several dozen inputs for 3D printing inks. At this point, understanding supply-side economics becomes incredibly easy to the point of being obsolete. The only economics that would matter at this point is demand-side economics. If you think companies are aggressively harvesting your personal information now, oh boy, you haven't seen anything yet. All that will matter from an economics perspective is understanding consumer choice patterns. Everything will be harvested and stored. Number crunchers and data miners will become the second largest industry behind 3D printing itself. The companies who best understand demand can best produce the best blueprints and new designs to meet demand and will become dominant. Basically, the data wars will get much worse, and with all production narrowed down to easily trackable points of action, that being the act of 3D printing a product, they will have a very easy time collecting this data. It would become increasingly hard to be someone who abstains from the system. It's not like you can just walk down to the store and buy your doohickey there, because it won't be available. Sure, small, limited complexity items might be for sale alongside of very high complexity items, but the majority of what we would consume would be mid-range complexity and would be purchased from the machine that requires your data profile, credit or debit information, and would easily be linked to you in a dozen different ways. This creates a situation where a social credit system like China's is not only possible, it's almost inevitable. If governments or megacorps are aggregating, here's that scary word again, everything about you with data from everyone else, they can cross-reference that information and punish you for what they don't like and reward you when you do what they want. This doesn't even have to be overt. Look at what happens on Facebook or Twitter. It's very easy to get yourself muted, temporarily banned, and shadow banned. And yes, shadow banning is a real documented thing. Imagine a horrifying reality where printers just won't work right for you because you hold an unpopular or unsanctioned view. You can't get what you need. Perhaps you donated to the wrong political cause or got yourself banned from the go-to social platform of the day. There are a million ways this can go horribly wrong. The point is that the more collectivization that happens, be that data, wealth, production, etc., the easier it is for people to lose their freedoms. In this dystopic future, economics would be replaced by an intensified form of data mining that already exists today. Even if this didn't result in an economically and socially controlled society, it would certainly fundamentally change the way economics works. Please like and subscribe. I also have links to my social media in the description, along with links to my books.